took the liberty of spending the best part of 2 hours getting our geometry here in the UVW editor into some semblance of order. Now don't feel cheated, because there's still enough to do for you to get a damn good insight as to how it's been accomplished, and to find out what a lot of these things here do and how they can be used to make this task a lot simpler. Okay, well, let's start by just taking a look at how it's all been set out. Now remember, we're creating this UVW map in order to produce diffuse, bump and perhaps a specular map. So therefore the layout is quite important. Now a lot of people think that the layout, these pieces of geometry here, should all be stitched together. That isn't the case. Now in this case I've placed the emphasis towards vertical alignment, and that's because if we have a look at our Messerschmitt here, we can see that we need to create the appearance of seams and panels, and those seams, if we have a look here, run vertically, so that alignment is crucial. Now when it comes to the horizontal alignment, we have a little bit of leeway, but that's not the case when it comes to the vertical alignment. So let's spend a little bit of time just looking at what we've actually got. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. Now as we can see, our main sections of the fuselage are all aligned vertically, and we have a bit of a gap between each one, and you'll notice that there are various sections laid to the side of them as well. Let's take a look at this one down here. Now if we look at that, I know that this section relates to that piece there. If we take a look in our perspective view, it actually relates to this area in here. Now that needs to be a dark colour, because it's where the exhausts reside. So when this is saved as JPEG file and worked on in Photoshop, all I'm going to do is actually create a square and shade it possibly a darkish brown, because the only part that will be seen in the model is those areas within the green lines. However, on this section here, which I did leave for us to do some work on, you can see that some of these lines actually cross over each other, so that's something that we've got to put right. Okay, well, let's continue. Now we have sections down here, and these actually relate to this section there. Now if we were to simply select these, right, and we go back to our perspective view, let's just have a look in here. There we can see that's where those are, just within that section there, and this one here relates to that over there, and these here, if we select that one, that should turn red there, so I know that's a grill. So therefore I'll be looking for an image of a grill, and that will be placed over there. Likewise with this section here, which relates to the one at the back. Okay, so not everything, as you can see, is stitched. We have a section here, and all I've done is align it, but that section, if we select it, would fit into there. Okay, let's deselect that. again, these sections here actually fit into these parts here, but again I've kept them separate. Likewise with these sections round here, but they are in alignment. Now this part here actually is, if we have a look, the front section here. In fact, if we select that, there we go, there you can see it. Now this selecting geometry actually works both ways, and it's very helpful if you need to find a section of geometry. Let's deselect that for a moment. If I were to come in here, we're on face, so if I was to come in here, select that, here we are, we can see it's that section there. Now if I was to go ring, it rings all of it, and if I go plus, there we can see it rings even more. So we can actually do this to select our pieces of geometry and bring them over into position. Now when I'm doing this, I also like to work with freeform mode selected, and this is the reason why we can see this bounding box which surrounds it. And when you're working off to the side and you have all your geometry within the work area, being able to identify it, select it this way, and have that bounding box come up, it's easily identifiable, and then you can simply drag it and pull it off to the side and put it in situ as to where you require it. Now obviously not all the pieces of geometry are this big, some are quite small, so when you get this bounding box comes up, it's like a police beacon, you see it straight away. In fact, let me show you how it really works. Right, let's just select all that geometry. Now you'll notice that if we go to the corners, we get our scaling symbol. So if I left click on that, I can actually scale it to size, any size I want. Let me just go undo for that one. Now if we put it there, you can see that we've got the rotate, so I could rotate it, but if you press Control and then left click, you can actually rotate this 5 degrees at a time. Let me just go undo. If you press Alt, you can actually rotate it 1 degree at a time. And let me just undo that. So this is quite a versatile little tool. Of course, we also have our select and move tool there, so if we place it in the center here, then we can select and move it anywhere we want to. In fact, as I'm in this area now, I think what I might do is just turn the select element off, put it onto edge. I want to select that edge there, right click, stitch selected. As you can see now, it's lined up that piece of geometry with the underneath part of our fuselage. Now this section here, let me now turn select on, face, just grab that edge there. That section is for the inside of here, and I think I'll just move this down to about there. I know it relates to that one. And of course this section over here, if we see it highlighted in there, it's the inside section of that ring there. Okay, we can deselect that and let's move across. again, there's another section there. In fact, if we select it, can we see it in here? There it is. So again, it's the recess that we have for our exhaust. Now, one thing to point out as well, sections that we created and we attached are treated as separate entities within the UVW editor. If you remember, we actually created this section separately, and that section, if I click that there, is this section here, and it has treated it separately. In fact, if I select that, the whole thing, we can see. So all I've done is slot it in place there, and let's just deselect that. That's moving on. Now this section here, this is the top of our fuselage, and this here is where the machine guns reside, in that section. Now, a lot of geometry in there, and a lot of geometry which couldn't be stitched together. What we need to do is keep the geometry as flat as possible so that we can apply our materials and coloration. So how it's been laid out here, these sections around here, the parts where there's blanks is these parts here, and these have been laid out more or less in relation to the geometry. Now, none of this really needs to be stitched because it's all basically the same colour. However, what is different is the machine guns, and here we have a machine gun. This is what it looks like when it's just laid out flat. And I actually had to use the fuselage in the perspective window in order to find most of those pieces. Let me just show you how I did that. I'm mindful of the time here actually, but what I was doing was using this to locate the pieces of geometry. Let me select that piece there. Right, so as you can see, the bounding box has come up, and you can see that straight away. And then I would go hit plus, and then I'd be able to select it, pull it over into position, and then start stitching sections together. Now you'll notice that not everything is stitched, only those parts I know that can form a cylinder. Now, what would have been very difficult to find was the inner section of this here. So if I just, let's move this out of the way. Okay, let's bring that up. Now, that inner section there, click inside there, and there it is. Straight away I can see that bounding box, so I know that's where it is. Select it all, and then move it across and in position. Okay, well, mindful of the time, we'll call that it for this session, and I'll catch you later.